And I want to welcome everybody to the April 21st, 2021, April 2021 of 21 Ottawa City Commission regular meeting. As we do with all of our meetings until we can all meet together, we read a disclosure statement, and I'm going to yield to Melissa to read that disclosure statement.
This is Melissa Reed, City Clerk, and I will be providing information for remote access as well as procedural guidelines that will be followed for this meeting. Due to the efforts to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, physical access to the City Commission meeting will be restricted. In accordance with Kansas Open Meetings Act, the meeting can be viewed live on Channel 23 and via Facebook Live or listened to by dialing 1-312-626-6799 and entering meeting ID 958-8516-8215 #. Guidelines for this meeting are as follows. Each member of the public, staff, or presenter is required to state the individual's name or title, if any, each time the individual begins speaking or voting so that the individual can be identified by remote listeners or observers. Citizens that submitted comment by 8 a.m. today to public comments at ottawakansas.gov were given to the City Commission to be read during public comment or during discussion on an agenda item. The Commission must describe at the beginning of the meeting the process that will be used for a closed or executive meeting pursuant to KSA 75-4319 and amendments thereto.
Thank you, Clerk Reed. We appreciate you reading that. We will begin our meeting with a roll call, please.
Mayor Kaler,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Crowley,
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore,
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen,
Present.
Commissioner Weigand.
Present.
I want to welcome everybody to this meeting today, and thank you for being part of the process. If you're watching this live, we are glad that you've joined us, and if you're watching this afterwards, thank you for tuning in and bringing yourself up to date with things that are going on in our city. We will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation, which will be led by Dr. Reverend Ernest Jones of Bethany Baptist. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we thank you for this wonderful day that you have given us, an opportunity that we have never had before, but you saw fit to give us that opportunity to be a blessing. So God, I pray for all of the commissioners and all of those that are involved in this process on this day. Keep your hands upon them and their families. God, just continue to protect us as we move forward to be the best persons we can be, as well as be recognized as children of God. Now, Lord, as we move forward in this meeting, God, just continue to be on the hearts and minds of all of the commissioners as they make those decisions. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Jones. We appreciate you joining us today, and we appreciate your words. That moves us on to consent agenda. However, before we do our consent agenda, I'm going to yield to our city manager so that he can announce a special guest that we have with us.
Thank you, Mayor. Richard Ninestead, City Manager. Melanie Lannis is joining us this morning. This is your first introduction to her as our next Director of Finance. She will begin on May 10th, and she is currently the Assistant City Administrator at Spring Hill, and has oversight on finance responsibilities and has served as the Director of Finance and Treasurer there. So I'd like to give Melanie a few minutes to share with the commission and the public whatever you care to.
Good morning. I thank you for giving me a minute to just introduce myself, and I appreciate being a part of the team. I'm looking forward to meeting you all in person and looking forward to being able to serve your community very soon. I think we're just a couple of weeks out from being there on site. So I'm happy to get to know each one of you once I get there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Melanie, welcome. We're so excited to have you join us in the city of Ottawa. Excited to get to see you and excited to get to meet you. So welcome to the team. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. That moves us on to the consent agenda, which includes minutes from April 5th, April 7th, April 12th, and the April 12th special call meeting. On that consent agenda also includes appointments to our city boards, including new appointment of Brian Milley and Dennis Nowacki, and reappointments to the Accessibility Advisory Board with Josh Robinson, Library Board, OMA Advisory Board, and the Planning Commission.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore, I'll make the motion. We approve the consent agenda, but I also want to say how much I appreciate this fine list of citizens willing to serve our community.
Absolutely. Is there a second?
Commissioner Weigand will second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That moves us on to our regular agenda, in which that we have public comment, which is always our first item on our agenda. Are there individuals who have registered for public comment today?
We have none today.
Then we will dispense from reading that, except for I do want to say that anyone is welcome at any point to have public comment and to give us public comment. We are here to serve the citizens of the entire city of Ottawa. So if you have things that you'd like to address with the city commission, please do so. Number 11, declaration. At this time, I'd like to give commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication that they may have had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner Jorgensen.
this is Commissioner Jorgensen. I would say that on item 14, which is concerns 27 East Rockwood Drive, I will be abstaining from voting, as I stated in a previous study session, because I do have a professional relationship with the applicant.
Is there any other declaration?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I too will abstain from item 16, though, since I am involved with those both business-wise and personally.
Any other declaration? I'd like to make a declaration that I do have a family member that lives in the Rockwood area. And although I do not believe that it will influence my ability, because honestly, we haven't even talked about this matter, I do want to declare it for the public to know. I still will be voting on item 14, however. That moves us on to item 12. And the first item or first proclamation for today is recognizing April 2021 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. This proclamation is intended to raise awareness for those affected by child abuse and neglect. Chris Roy and Ken Cole with CASA will accept the proclamation. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the city of Ottawa prides itself in getting back to the community, contributing to the quality of life among its citizens. And whereas CASA, the 4th Judicial District, and its volunteers represent the best interest of abused and neglected children who are involved in juvenile courts. And whereas there are many children in Ottawa, Kansas, who suffer some form of child abuse and neglect each year. And whereas through a national effort, members of the Ottawa community are encouraged to join together in the month of April to raise awareness for those children who are victims of abuse and neglect. And whereas this effort and promoting of awareness and this effort and promoting awareness of abuse and neglect will give abused and neglect children in our community and around the country a chance for a safe, positive future. Now, therefore, the governing body of the city of Ottawa, Kansas does hereby recognize April 2021 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month in the city of Ottawa and urges all citizens to join in the national effort to raise awareness and help the prevention of child abuse and neglect. Signed this the 21st day of April 2021 by the Mayor, Sarah Kaitler. And do we have somebody who's here to accept that? It looks like, Chris, are you here to accept this? Hi, Chris.
Hi, yes, I am here. I'm the new executive director of CASA. I also have Ken Cole with me, one of our longest time volunteers. And what CASA stands for is Court Appointed Special Advocate. And what we do is we identify community volunteers, train them, and they follow cases in the juvenile system and kind of take pressure off of the system through prosecutors, social workers, judges, And we're just that extra set of eyes that try to look at the case and best advocate for what's best for the child. Even when there's a case where taking them to the home is absolutely necessary, that still creates trauma. And sometimes those kids get lost in the cracks. And what we try to do is just navigate and try to help the best we can.
Thank you, Chris. I am going to yield to Ken, and I want to say I'm so glad you're here today, Ken, and hats off to you for everything you've done to advocate for kids over many, many years, and I'm so glad to see that you're still strong in the fight. Ken, what do you have to say about your work with CASA and this proclamation?
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
You are. We can hear you.
Okay. There's not a lot without going into great detail, but I think the only thing I can say is it's a program I believe in, or I wouldn't be doing it for all these years. As Kaylor can attest to, I've been around for a long time. And so I believe in the program. And without, like I say, without going into great detail, that's, the best I can do. Is I've been doing it about 18 years now, so I believe in the program.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for being with us today. And Chris, thank you for being with us today. I know that you, Chris, would probably take 4 dozen more Ken Coles in the CASA program. I know I certainly loved having him as a volunteer when I was with CASA. And so I know that you would take him, and I know that you would certainly take more volunteers. So we lift up Child Abuse Awareness Month today to you.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate you, commissioners, for taking this time to recognize us.
Absolutely. Next, item 13 on the agenda.
Proclamation recognizing April 30, 2021 as Arbor Day.
The City of Ottawa takes notice of Arbor Day with planting of a tree. Michael Hafley, the Public Works Director, will accept this proclamation, which will be read by Mayor Pro Tem Crowley.
And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase the property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the City of Ottawa, and urges all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and urges all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Signed this 21st day of April 2021 by our Mayor, Sarah Kalin.
Mr. Hafley?
Mayor, Mike Hafley, Public Works Director. Thank you for this proclamation. As the proclamation reads, trees are an important part of the environment. Not only do they clean the air and help provide oxygen, they also help with stormwater. The long, deep root systems that they have help water absorb into the ground, which is where we need it, back in the ground. So this year we are planting trees. It will not be on Arbor Day. It will probably be this fall, but we do plan to plant several trees in Forest Park. So thank you for this proclamation.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Hafley. We appreciate it. Yes, on to the next item for the agenda.
Item number 14, ordinance for conditional use permit at 27 East Rockwood Drive by Morningstar Care Homes.
This permit would allow 2 additional residents, bringing the total number of residents to 12 for 27 East Rockwood Drive. Commissioners, we've had several study sessions in which we've addressed this matter. I think we've comprehensively addressed this matter in a thorough manner. I mean, certainly. We have several things that we have discussed. We do have 2 ordinances that have been brought to you. City Attorney Finch is going to address those really quick, and then we will finish our conversation.
Good morning, Mayor Kaler, Commissioners Blaine Finch, City Attorney. You have in your packet and before you 2 different draft ordinances for your review and discussion this morning. The one that I would label as driveway. Well, let's do this. The ordinances are the exact same until you get to section 2. So the ordinance that I will call driveway in section 2 has 4 conditions for the permit based on the conversations that you all have had to this point. 1 is compliance with all applicable state, county, and local requirements, and 2 is all applicable licenses to operate or maintained. Those are 2 of the current conditions in the conditional use permit that allows Morningstar Care Homes to have 10 residents at the 27 Rockwood facility. Then item 3 would be a one-way driveway approved by the Public Works Director to be continued through to Lincoln Street. That is based on staff recommendations for how a driveway could be located there if that is the commission's decision. That is not necessarily an endorsement that staff believes that is a good idea, but if one is to be required, that is the minimum conditions that staff believes should be in place for that. And then 4 is screening installed along the south property line in accordance with section 7-408 of the zoning regulations. 7-408 is the parking lot screening regulations. And so if you think about places where we have commercial parking lots that abut in a residential neighborhood, Walgreens at 15th and Main, or the new parking lot put in by Advent Health there at 14th and Hickory, they have screening requirements that have a certain level of opaqueness that must be maintained in order to prevent headlights from shining into neighboring residential windows. So they can be a mix of vegetation and fencing. And rather than try to get into defining what exactly you wanted there, we thought we'd use the code section that is applicable for those kinds of situations when one use might butt up against another. Sections 3, 4, and 5 of the driveway ordinance are the same as sections 4, 5, and 6 of what I'll call the hours ordinance. And if you'll look at that ordinance, that has 5 conditions instead of 4 in section 2. The first 2 are exactly the same. Compliance with state, county, and local requirements, applicable licenses obtained and maintained. Then the third condition limits when deliveries can be made. There were concerns raised, and you all had highlighted this idea of allowing for times in the neighborhood where pedestrians could walk and not worry about traffic, not have deliveries being made at hours that were not business appropriate. And so that's an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday for those scheduled deliveries. And then item 4 is no semi-truck deliveries to the property are allowed. My understanding and testimony to the Planning Commission is that the applicant has already had the food deliveries made somewhere else. And then those are taken in a smaller vehicle, but this just makes clear that no semi-truck deliveries are to be scheduled. I would note that the first part of that is notwithstanding incidental or one-time deliveries. I would guess that in this residential area, as in most others, if something is ordered, furnishings or something like that, and is to be delivered, the commission indicated that you wanted some leeway for those things that the applicant may not control, just as other residents in the neighborhood may not control how an out-of-town vendor might ship something to them, whether that's shipped on what's called a less than full load or on a box truck. So we tried to balance that and make that match up with the character of the neighborhood. And then the last one is the same as the other one, the screening installed along the south property line for vehicles that would ingress and egress into 27 East Rockwood to try to limit light going on to a neighboring property. After that, section 3 is new in this ordinance. Section 3 requires you to review this in a year. If these conditions have not alleviated most of the problems, or there are ongoing problems, then the commission will hold a hearing and look into that. And then at that point, if it turns out that a driveway would be the better solution or some other condition would be necessary, then you all can do that. So this is kind of a short of doing the driveway, says let's try some limitations that seem reasonable within conforming to the character of the neighborhood. And if those don't work within a year, we can revisit this driveway idea or any other conditions that may be necessary at that point. So those are the big differences between the two drafts you have before you. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Commissioner Wigand, for the, when the driveway is installed, we drop the delivery time schedule. That's the kind of the trade-off. That's really the only difference in that regard on those 4 and 5 items on section 2.
Yeah. Blaine Finch, City Attorney. Commissioner Wigand, the thought was if we have the driveway as kind of that service entrance, that really eliminates kind of the need for hours of limitation and that sort of thing, that the two were never really discussed together, that we would have both in one ordinance. Everyone seemed to think, well, the driveway eliminates some of that because they will enter off of Lincoln. And then others have said, well, maybe the hours would be better than the driveway. So that's why they exist independently. The commission may today direct us to draft a hybrid of the two or make changes to either one of these or may decide not to adopt either one. But whatever it is you decide, I can draft that up for you if there are changes you want to see made, or if you want some combination, whatever it is you approve, we can draft for you.
Mayor Kaler, I wonder if we could have our attorney also go ahead and go through the items you did on Monday with regard to the outcomes of how we would vote and the number of votes and what happens if we don't get 4 votes.
Blaine Finch, City Attorney. Mayor and Commissioners, there are 3 options. We'll call them 3.5, but there are 3 options for the commission today. You can approve what the Planning Commission did. In other words, you would deny the applicant's request for expansion of the conditional use. That takes 3 votes or no action at all. You can override what the Planning Commission recommended to you. That takes 4 votes, and that's done by adopting an ordinance essentially. And that's why you have ordinance drafts in front of you. Or you can return this item to the Planning Commission with a statement of what you think they did not consider or what you would like them to reconsider. That takes 3 votes.
Additional questions? Okay, commissioners. So we have several variables, of course, that we've discussed, and I know our city attorney has addressed several of those in the 2 ordinance that he brought to us today, working with Community Development Director Lee too. Thank you so much for that quick turnaround on that. What is the will of the commission? What are you thinking? What direction do you want to go on this?
Commissioner Skidmore speaking here. I'm looking at a letter that was submitted to us from the Rockwood neighborhood representing 13 homes. It seems to me that the main concern was the traffic on the horseshoe, I call it Rockwood Drive. Rather more that than there was the delivery times or the deliveries of items, which affected more the people just next door. I'm just thinking that more and more, it looks like to me, we need to work out something with the current traffic. If we do approve an access road, that would certainly reduce the traffic, even what's there today with 10 residents. And I think that seemed to be more of the push is from what I'm reading from the people that submitted their concerns. I'm just now thinking about what Commissioner Wigand said with regard to delivery times. I suppose if they made a delivery late at night, like at 10 o'clock, that could affect the neighbors next door. And so maybe there could be some kind of a hybrid that we've been talking about. I wonder if we could ask Scott, I believe you're on right now. Could you tell us about delivery times? Do you ever have anything delivered late at night?
Sorry. Okay. Most of the items that come to the home aren't ordered by us. Let's say you've got a resident who's declining and the physician decides that they need a hospital bed. So the physician for the hospice company that's serving the family tells the family, I'm going to go ahead and order a hospital bed, and just say it happens at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. By the time the hospice company hires the DME, the durable medical equipment company, to bring the bed, and then they assign a driver, and the transport might come from Kansas City, Topeka, Lawrence, what have you. You know, many times it doesn't fall in 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. So we have no control over most of what's delivered. We can control the food and we can control what we bring in if we're making repairs or something, but I don't know how to manage it. I can try, but you know, we just don't order stuff very often.
So those to be considered more notwithstanding incidental or one-time deliveries can happen. You never know when, but your scheduled deliveries, as far as your planned deliveries, could be done through the middle of the day, I assume.
Absolutely.
Commissioners, additional? I'd like to weigh in on the hours ordinance with no driveway. The particular part that I'm interested in is the section 3, which is the conditional use permit shall be reviewed by the governing body in not less 1 year and not less than 1 year after approval of the ordinance. I wonder if either Mrs. Lee or Mr. Finch could please address what exactly are we reviewing? And I do like this idea because I like the idea of saying, you know what, as a neighborhood, you can work it out. These are residents too, and these are citizens too. And I think we've forgotten that at Morningstar, those 8 people that live there, they're citizens too. And so I want to remember that maybe this is a good trial run. This is the way to try it without forcing a driveway to be constructed. So I wonder if Mrs. Lee or Mr. Finch want to address that.
Mayor Kaler, this is Wendy Lee, Director of Community Development. The provisions there are if they did not meet the conditions 3 and 4, then you would be open, or we would be expected to bring back for consideration again to say, okay, there's still a problem as perceived by the neighborhood. I think the other option it really gives us is possibly an ability to track the counts and then see what they are so that we can actually have real data before adding a connection to an arterial road. From public works standards to community development standards in our ordinance, we would not allow that. However, if that's your condition, we of course recognize you are the ultimate authority in these situations and it is up to you. But our standards are that we don't have that access. We did show it as a one-way, as a way to say this would apparently cut in half the traffic without adding all traffic to Lincoln. And there's some issues with the connection to Lincoln. This is not a curb and gutter section of road. It has some drop-offs if you misturn, if you are speeding and you were to come up upon a vehicle that exited or was waiting to go in, whichever direction was best. That was why we did that as well. So just offering that. We're really not in support of a connection to Lincoln, but this would at least allow us to check it out if you were willing to wait. And you had mentioned the other day, what if we came back and dealt with that? But either ordinance is drafted for your consideration.
Yes, Mayor Wygan, or sorry, Commissioner Wygan.
I'd like to ask Scott to give us an estimate of the traffic in and out, I don't have a feel for how many vehicles a day would come in and out, including cars, trucks, and vans. 10, 15, 20?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner, I don't either. I don't think anyone does. And I agree with Ms. Lee that, studying it is the only way to have any evidence. It's all speculation right now, and it's not consistent. It comes in waves, it comes and goes based on needs. And, it isn't 10 medical supply companies or 10 cleaning supply companies that come on a routine basis that create the traffic.
Okay. Thank you. I'm still struggling with the need for that driveway. I just don't think that is going to solve the problem, or I like the idea of reviewing it in a year, and then possibly putting in the driveway if it's still a problem for the neighbors and they think that would solve the problem. So I'd like to hear from my fellow commissioners in that regard.
Mrs. Lee, the one way is just a suggestion, correct? There's no way it'll ever be policed, correct?
Right, I guess that's true, although I think the method in which it's connected, we have standards for how we do that, and could put up some signage to indicate, how it is. And of course, they can communicate with deliveries and that kind of stuff. And while we recognize the HOA may not allow it, no one in this room, I don't believe, intends for it to be anything other than the traffic associated with this use. And to avoid that, you can bend the driveway access a little bit to deter people. You can make it narrow so that it only serves as a one-way versus cars meeting each other, and that kind of thing. So obviously the public works director and the construction company hired to build the road would have to work through some things to make that happen. There's some elevation there, if you haven't seen that. And so we'd have to take that into account too, as to which way it should go. We were just trying to avoid it becoming a road. It's a driveway. And while I appreciate the comments about the traffic, there's a lot of people, for example, if I had a member of my household who had just been put in a hospital bed and was on hospice, there'd be a lot of traffic at my house too. So some of those kind of situations are precisely what that use is for. They're not they're not ongoing every day all through the year. Those kind of situations are situational. Where it can be controlled with deliveries, I think certainly the applicant has gotten that message. And that's why we support the let's wait and see how it goes after they understand that's the desire of the group.
Thank you.
Commissioner Skidmore, just a quick question. One way or one lane, what are we saying here?
Well, we put it in as one way.
Out or in?
That's up to the public works director and the applicant to determine which makes sense given the elevations and the turn movements from or onto Lincoln.
Okay, so if a truck delivered some food, if they came in on that way for the decision, they would exit on the horseshoe?
Right.
Commissioner Crowley here, sorry.
No, I was just going to expand on the surface of the driveway. Is that going to be gravel, asphalt, concrete? What?
Our requirements are that you have to improve it. I know there was an estimate provided, but I don't recall. I can look here real quick, but we would require it to be asphalt or some non-dust-free surface. Asphalt or concrete, some other.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Crowley here. I was just going to make a comment on the section 3 on the hours and screening draft. I'm kind of torn on how I feel about that section, because I do like the idea of reviewing this down the road, whether I think it says after a year after the approval of the ordinance. My only concern is that we might be opening Pandora's box with giving the neighbors the ability to report every incident. And then at that point, it's an abundance of information that's not necessary on their behalf, hoping that it might affect this CUP for a future commission. I do like it. I mean, it's just, I'm right on the fence on it.
Commissioner Wagon, I have a follow-up comment on that too, is that the following commissioner, or a year from now, if there's still these complaints, do we unwind the clock and say, take 2 residents out and or take away the special use permit and go down to 8? Or how do you do that if you don't, if we got a problem?
City Attorney Blaine Finch, Mayor and Commissioners, a couple of points on that Section 3. We can redraft. Right now, it's set up as a non-compliance question that can be redrafted to just say you'll review it in a year to determine all issues. I know traffic was one that Commissioner Skidmore raised. And Ms. Lee has talked about the possibility of traffic counts within the neighborhood. We could simply write that as a review 1 year from now to determine either compliance with conditions and conditions in the neighborhood. However, and we can draft it broadly enough to cover basically a review in a year. The special use permit, to the concern about anyone raising concerns about a conditional use permit, anyone can do that at any time. That could be done now under the current conditional use, and the mechanism to report suspected violations is to the planning department, the community development department here. And I'll let Ms. Lee speak to whether any violations have been reported at this point. But that is how that is done now for all conditional use permits throughout the community. So then to Commissioner Wygand's question of what would you do in a year? And what I've tried to flesh out there is that you could then require the driveway if we think that's the ultimate solution to this problem, or any other remedy that you may determine appropriate. So if there was something else that emerged over the course of the year that would be a better solution than the driveway, you would have that option. It's not set up at this point that you would revoke the permit, though you certainly can. You can set it up so that the permit's only good for 1 year and then you renew it if you find that the conditions are acceptable. So a couple of options there. And again, if you choose to go that route, we'll draft that for you. I've got my computer here. I can go back and draft that while you do the last couple things on your agenda, and we can come back so you have a copy to review and vote on, depending on what the consensus is, if you choose to go that route.
Commissioner Skidmore, another question on the driveway. I'm thinking if it's a 1-lane driveway, could it go both directions? I know most driveways I'm familiar with, long ones, are one way, or no, excuse me, are either way as it is now. And I guess it takes some yielding to traffic. It's a short distance. I would think they could yield if they had met each other somehow. Is a two-way driveway, 1 lane acceptable?
That would be up to you.
Okay.
I guess I wonder, I think about, because I have teenagers, and trying to watch them do a 3-point turn is pretty strategic. And if you're in a semi doing a 3-point turn on a driveway, I could see how that would be very complex. And so we can't make it. I mean, I'm not in favor of forcing the applicant to make it as wide as a road so that they can do a 3-point turn. Most driveways are not as wide as a road. And so I see the value in having it be a 1-way driveway. You either go all the way in, or you go all the way in through the east and out through the west, or you go in through the west and out through the east, not a turnaround in somewhere within that driveway. That's just my observations on how well people do 3-way turns, and I can't imagine how they do it with a semi. I continue to go back to the fact that I have heard, and we have all heard from citizens that live in the Rockwood area, that they are looking for win-win solutions. They want win-win solutions. They want everyone to win here. And I know that people around on this stage want everyone to win here too. I continue to go back to the particular ordinance that addresses the hours of delivery without the driveway for the next year. And that gives us an opportunity for the police department to do a traffic count out there, to actually see, to look at what solutions are good long-term solutions. Because what I'd hate to do is to rush to force a driveway when in a year, when we know better, we do better. And that wasn't necessary. So if we were to give some time instead of the 3 weeks that we've given this, and I know that it's been around for more than 3 weeks, please do not think I do not know that. I completely respect that it has. But to give it a little bit more time so that we can actually look at a concrete win-win solution for everyone, that's really where I favor. The footprint of the building is not changing. They're not asking to add a second wing. They're not asking to add a second level. But what we would do in this ordinance is say to them, you know what, you can't make deliveries after 5. And, maybe it's deliveries after 6, maybe it's 9 to 6, maybe 8's too early. But you can't make deliveries after that time. And you still have to follow all the rules. And you do have to screen for those neighbors that, may be seeing some headlights and some other things. I'm looking for a win-win solution, and I really feel like giving this a little bit of time and, up to a year to do some traffic counts and look at win-win solutions may be the win for us all.
Mayor, may I? Scott Schultz?
Yes,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Schultz. Yes.
Thank you. The team around me, the management team, my wife, legal counsel, this isn't a win-win. Neither of the ordinances are a win-win. I'd almost say let's withdraw the application, study the situation, meet with neighbors, find out what's workable and what's not, and see if we come back in a year. So I don't know if I can, but I would withdraw the application at this point.
Well, thank you, Mr. Schultz. We learn something new every single day here on City Commission, and I'm going to yield to our city attorney and for our community development director to give us guidance on where would you like to go with that suggestion.
Blaine Finch, City Attorney. Mayor, Commissioners, our code allows for any applicant to withdraw their application at any time. So if Mr. Schultz is desiring to withdraw his application, that would render any further proceedings today moot.
Mr. Schultz, I'm going to ask you one more time. Is that the will?
Yeah, it's not our will, but it's the only solution I can see that makes sense at this time.
Well, I recognize that your choice of words of it's the only solution, but it is on our agenda today. So that is a solution that you're proposing. And so is that the solution that you would like to go with?
Yeah, it's withdrawn. We can't monitor the traffic well enough to meet the requirements. We can't go to the bank and ask them to invest in a project that could result in 8 residents or 10 residents at the end of the day. It's a good technical solution in the ordinances, but it's not a feasible solution. So we withdraw.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. I appreciate your words today, and we will consider this use permit or conditional use permit application withdrawn. Thank you. This moves us on to item 15 on the agenda.
Resolution to amend neighborhood revitalization program by adding area to the residential district.
This amendment will add Funston and Mason streets to the program. Mrs. Lee?
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, this is Wendy Lee, Director of Community Development. Our department, as you know, facilitates the neighborhood revitalization program. And we had a proposed development that is in an older part of the community with neighborhood revitalization around them. the roads are open, so it's a quasi development in that we already have a lot of the infrastructure there, not all of it, but a lot of it. And they asked if they could ask to be added to the neighborhood revitalization program. So they put in that request. The review committee comprised of one member of the city, the county commission, city commission, county commission, and school board. Felt comfortable enough with that request to forward that on to all three governing bodies. And staff is comfortable as well. That does afford them some incentive in that area to continue to add homes that we need.
Mrs. Lee, are both sides of Funston and Mason Streets, are they both in the city limits on
Yes,
both
ma'am.
sides?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Well, I think there is some farm on part of that, but the part that they're proposing to development is inside the city limits.
Okay, and does it have infrastructure right now?
It has some, but not all. Some utilities are still needing to be connected, but the roads are open.
I don't know. Okay. All right, great. So something we will probably need to address at some point.
There would need, the developer is still planning to do a plat that's platted as a big block, more or less. And in order to do development there, they're going to have to rearrange the lot lines. So you would see that coming forward.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Mrs. Lee? If not, I will entertain a motion if there is one.
Commissioner Weigand,
Yes.
I would make the motion that we, the amendment will add to authorize the amending the neighborhood revitalization program to include Funston and Mason Streets to the program.
Is there a second?
Mayor Jorgensen seconds.
Commissioner Jorgensen seconds. Is there any discussion among commissioners? Then we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Weigand?
I vote yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
And Mayor Kayler?
And I vote yes, motion carries. That moves us on to item 16.
Recommendation to add 9 residential structures to the neighborhood revitalization program.
The Neighborhood Revitalization Review Committee has reviewed and recommends adding the properties below to the program. A residential new structure, which will be up for sale at 609 North Hickory, 733 South Pine, and 413 East 4th. And a residential remodeling address that will be also up for sale, 819 North Mulberry, 716 South Sycamore, 732 South Willow, 726 West 5th, 616 South Ash, and 914 West 6th. Commissioners, is there a motion on this?
Madam Mayor, I just want to say, I think this program is one of the shining examples of how a city can work together with the school district and the county to bring about some revitalization to our communities. And I just really think this program is a very much a success. I hope I'm alive long enough to hear the future commissioners thank us for doing this years before they were even elected. So with that, I will make the motion. We approve item 16 on our agenda.
Is there a second?
I will second that, Commissioner Weigand.
Discussion among commissioners.
You know, I just make the comment, I totally agree with Mike's comment, but you can't hardly drive around a neighborhood anymore without seeing construction or vacant lots filled that have sat empty for years with new, nice, affordable homes being built in them. So I think this program has really caught on and it's a great program and it's working for us.
Who is the commissioner that I know for years I sat on this commission, on this particular revitalization review committee? It looks like Commissioner Jorgensen is now serving.
Yeah.
Do you have comment, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Well, this program has been in place for a number of years, and I personally have taken advantage of it a couple of times, building homes and selling them through the program. And I think it's an excellent tool for our community. I guess the proof is going to be in the pudding here coming up pretty quick with our population, the U.S. census coming out, because as Commissioner Weigand has said, we have a number of new homes within our community, and we seem to have a lot of people moving into our community. But we'll see on the numbers, and it'll be a question of how accurate our count was during the COVID year. But I think we're definitely seeing some excitement and pride of home ownership and new homes being built in our community.
Absolutely.
I recall I think the launch of this program, and it was a long time getting the word out to how it actually worked and the advantage and how easy it is to work with. And but now it's well understood. People are taking advantage of it. But I think that's been 25 years. I think I was on the county commission when this came in at 95 or 6 or something like that.
So, yeah, I have no idea.
It might have been slow to warm up, but we're certainly glad it's here. Yes. Speaking of, because we have little heat right here in the auditorium right now, we're going to proceed to vote unless anybody else has the comment.
Just one more comment. I didn't realize it's on place that long, so I personally want to thank those previous commissioners for making those decisions.
If there's no other comment, we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
I vote yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Crowley is abstaining. Mayor Kaler?
Yes, motion carries. All right, great. That moves us on to reports by our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, City Commissioners. Richard Neinstead, City Manager. I have 2 items. One of them is recovery funds. We think over the course of the next 2 years, we'll receive $1.72 million. Now, next Wednesday, we're supposed to have a webinar that tells us what the rules and regulations are. So we really don't know what hoops we have to jump through, how those funds can be used, what they can be used for. So hopefully next Wednesday, between NLC, between League of Kansas Municipalities and our federal offices, we get a better understanding of what that takes. And what I would tell you, let's go slow on this. Let's make sure we get it right. You're going to have it for 2 years. And let's make sure we do meaningful projects in the community that will be lasting with these federal tax dollars. So, okay. The next thing is,
Richard, may I ask the question? Would you repeat how much? I heard 1.17 or 1.72.
$1.72 million.
And that is an estimated number. That is
Yeah,
not a
that's-
final number.
Right.
That's an estimate. It could wind up being $1.70, or it could wind up being 17 million. We don't know.
And we've received some COVID relief over the past year or 6 months or so. Has that gone out, or we still got some of that to assign?
And you're asking about the shares money we
Right.
received.
Uh-huh.
It's spent. And that was actually spent on a reimbursement. We turned in those bills and we got reimbursed, and we're done with that.
Okay, thank you.
So today just happens to be Administrative Professional Day. We have a lot of administrative professionals in our organization, and they help us do what we need to do. And I just want to publicly say I appreciate that. And I also want to, this is going to embarrass her, but I also want to call out Laura Matthews, who's actually our executive assistant. And I just want to say thank you, Laura, for what you do for the public, for the citizens, for the commission, for our employees, and for myself. This has been an exceptionally trying and challenging year. And we wouldn't be here without a lot of people. And one of those key people is Laura Matthews. Thank you. And that's it, Commissioners.
Thank you, City Manager Neinstead. I appreciate that. That moves us on to reports by our city commissioners. Mayor Pro Tem Crowley,
I have no report. Thank you.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
No report today.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Just brief, I just appreciate the back and forth we were able to work with in the Rockwood neighborhood. It was an interesting time. We've been through this, a lot of decisions I know have gone on hold right now, but I just appreciate all the people in the neighborhood being willing to step forward and express their opinions and allow a free flow of ideas. Thank you.
Commissioner Weigand.
I have no report.
Okay. And Mrs. Hunter, report by the mayor. I have no report at this point, except to say that we have our joint city-county school board meeting luncheon today, which will be held is anybody here attending in person?
Oh, yeah.
In person?
Yeah.
Do we get 2 in persons? Okay. And then a few virtuals. And then we will have our study session today at noon, hosted by USD 290. And then we have our study session on the 26th and the 3rd. And the public is invited to join us via Zoom. And on the 5th, we will have our regular meeting at 7 p.m. here at the auditorium. And the public is invited to join us via Zoom. We're hoping that the further meetings out there that we may start making some additional changes once vaccines and people who are vaccinated have, reached full efficacy. So without that, or without anything else to be brought for the City Commission today, we will adjourn today's meeting and we will see you all on the 26th for our study session. Thank you.